I certainly don't want to grow without seeing the team grow. I think if I don't, if I achieve, when I achieve financial success and the team isn't there, that's kind of a fail to me, right?
Welcome to Beyond Hospitality, a loose discussion on all things hospitality in the specialty coffee industry. We're your hosts, Jay and Becca. And today we are visiting with Rich Lee, the owner of Spro Coffee Lab in San Francisco. Spro Coffee Lab is a fairly new coffee company in a city that has pretty much a long history of specialty coffee. With a constant desire to push the quality and creativity of food and drinks, and being rather successful at it, we're happy to talk today with Rich on how he got started. Today we're talking with Rich Lee of Spro Coffee Company here in San Francisco. I'm super excited to have the opportunity to chat with you. But Rich, to start out, first tell us a little bit where your background is, how you got into coffee.
I started as a barista. I actually worked at Pete's more than a decade ago, but I went and I jumped around to different coffee shops, small roasteries. Ended up at even working at Blue Bottle for a while, and I got to a point where I felt like I couldn't learn anymore, and thought maybe it would be time to move on, to seek for higher education. And I thought maybe I can learn more if I spent the time to do it my way, by myself. And I think it was true after finding ways to fund my machine and being able to mess with different parameters that I wasn't allowed to do at other roasteries. I became a better barista, more in tune with my craft. But I've worked for quite a few roasters, from small to medium to large roasters. I think where I truly became a barista was when I invested in myself, being able to, like I said, pull different shots and different types of single origin beans that I want to order. Usually I'm, restricted because you can't bring other coffee beans to a different company, right? So being able to have that freedom to create made me a better barista. Learning how to modify the pressure of your espresso machine, something you're not allowed to do at somebody else's coffee shop, right? So
we were talking about this earlier, like a food truck or coffee truck concept, as opposed to starting out directly into a cafe.
Right. Yeah. I didn't really have the money, but I had a car. I had some camera equipment. But I sold all of that for the espresso machine. My camera became my grinder. I used to collect watches, so I would sell my watches for all the Akaya scales. And my wife, Liza, she said, if you want to do this, I'll do it with you. So she sold her car and built the trailer. And I think, I have, thinking back, I probably won't do it again, but I think it was out of desperation to grow, right? To really have my own space. And I felt like doing pop-ups was not, it was so temporary. I didn't have like a space that truly belonged to me. And so when we got the trailer, we parked it at Spark Social in Mission Bay.
So this was like a stationary, it just stayed.
It stayed, it doesn't move. So it's basically a brick and mortar. And I told myself that it's just me and Liza. I don't need anything else, right? I have the espresso machine, I have power, I have water, I have coffee, and I'm good to go, and I wasn't ever planning on hiring a single person. It was just me and my wife, Liza. And when I first started, it was tough. I remember like not knowing where I put my cups, because it's not like it was a cafe that was built for you. You had to build it yourself. So um, it's hard to figure things out without planning your own rules, planning your own SOPs, right.
Yeah.
And trying to, how do I write checks? I've never had to write checks for other vendors before. So it was interesting. The trailer over time got busier. I think within a couple months, people started noticing that, hey, this place has pretty good coffee. Like, who knew? It's a trailer, But that's totally my thing. Like, I think if you're a barista, you can make good coffee. You should be able to make good coffee regardless of what box you're in. Whether or not you're in a building or in a trailer. Like, you're not going to make worse coffee because you're in a different space. And being the barista, I had not just ownership, but I had control of the quality that came out. And so my whole philosophy was serve people drinks that I would approve, and that I would drink. And I think that's like a very simple concept that you think that, for me, I'm sure a lot of cafes, they do the same thing, right? But for me, it was like, well, I've certainly had, great experiences at a lot, some cafes, but also like things that I felt like either didn't make much sense or, maybe compromise quality. I'm like, let me see if I can figure out how to change my operation to elevate the experience, make quality better. But yeah, I think within months we had a strong enough line where I told my wife that I'm like, this is, I don't want to say this, but I think we need help, and like my whole goal is like, yeah, we should hire anything. It's just a, husband and wife situation. But we hired a person, and I think, and then two, and then three, and then before long, his name is Chow, the first hire. He asked me if I would be able to create a job for him because he's going to design, and he wanted to see if maybe in the future the company would be big enough to hire him on board as a designer. I'm like, we're a trailer, man. We're not gonna be able to, bring you on board anytime soon, right?
Yeah.
But I think he saw something about like the company growing, and I think like for me, that was the moment where I kind of woke up and said like, hey, this is actually not just me and Liza doing this. It's like I'm dealing with real lives here that like they plan on spending their life interacting with me, and they clearly care about the company's well-being, and I care about him, and so it kind of drastically shifted my focus from making good coffee, which is very, very basic, right? Once you know how to make good coffee, like, sure, you just go in every day, you just pull a good shot, the shot that you like within certain set parameters. But it was more about, okay, this is not really a coffee company anymore. Like, how do I build a business?
Yeah.
How do I take care of people like Chow? And how do I make sure that if Chow wants to stay all the way, or when he wants to see the company grow to a point where we can hire him on board, like, how do we get there? And I really, starting a business, I had no objective other than like, okay, let's make some money so we can put food comfortably on the table. It was more about how do we get enough funding to give him a design job, like people see this as like, I want to do this, even, however many years it would take, right?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of jump started everything, my whole philosophy of building a business. I honestly, I don't know how to build a business. I didn't know where to go, and I thought it would be so nice if somebody just walked into my life and said, "Hey, this is what you got to do," right?
Yeah, here's the book.
Sure.
Follow these steps.
And I think that I don't want to say I was struggling, but I was like definitely trying for at least a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. But we had steady revenue with steady traffic. We had built some sort of, if you call it a brand, but enough people know about us and say like, hey, I want to go and support them. I want to go and say hello. And then the pandemic happened, right? Like 2 or 3 years later. And I think at that time, have seen so many restaurants and even coffee shops shutter. Yeah. I said, okay, here we are, sitting ducks. We're either going to go out of business or we're going to go do better, right? And I actually had a meeting with the employees. They said, we either sink or swim, and we must swim. And the only way to like prevent ourselves from like getting sick maybe is maybe we can all move in together.
Let's get really
let's really cut costs.
Strategize.
Let's plan on like surviving, right? The goal is to survive. So we got an apartment big enough to house a few baristas, I think like.
And you didn't have to deal with the quarantining issue because you guys lived together.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, how do we maintain operation? Maintain our operation. So, and then also like loans were easier, and I'm like, okay, this is the time to grow actually, because if we don't try to grow, we're just waiting for the pandemic to be over.
Smart.
And so I was like, people need help. People, banks are willing to help. Let's get a loan. Let's see how many places that are shut down that we can turn and build it into a cafe, right?
Nice. So a real brick and mortar.
A real brick and mortar, yeah. I think like having two streams of revenue is better than one, Yeah. There's risk. There are risks in everything. I've got most of the items from Amazon, and I was basically the general contractor. I've never built anything. I mean, I have one guy. He was a painter. He's a professional painter. He painted everything. I don't know how to build a counter. I don't have the tools for it. So we found somebody to kind of build the counter. But everything else, like I put together.
DIY.
Yeah, a lot of DIY. A lot of watching like Netflix, like Marie Kondo. Like, okay, this is not needed. Toss that. Yeah. This is how I would build my home. I'm like, okay, that's a good idea. I'm gonna do that, to my cafe. I thought it was a risk that was worth it all, And so I opened up that Church Street location in Mission Dolores, and it became really busy. I think we were so thankful about the whole neighborhood being like so welcoming.
Yeah.
For us
Great
existing.
Spot.
Yeah.
Especially during the pandemic while you were opening up there.
Yeah, I think it was very strange. Now that I think back, how weird. At that time it was very normal, but people walking up to the door and saying like, "Is it okay to come in?"
Yeah.
Is something that I hope they never experience again. But it's people want to be out. People wanted to get coffee and things like that, and not feel like they're putting anybody else in danger or themselves in danger. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty brave to say, you know what, I think we're going to build a coffee spot, and if you want to dine in, then you can dine in, but the rest of us are masking up. We have K95s for everyone, myself, but if people want to sit down, enjoy a bite, that's totally okay. I know like everybody is doing to go. The restrictions are removed, but people are still doing to go. I'm like, you know what? I'm gotta just follow the law
Mhm.
and try to push ourselves back to normalcy, right? And it worked. I think a lot of people came in the beginning. I think the first 6 months, people were like, I don't know if I should be in here.
Yeah.
I ordered to go. I even drink my coffee outside, you know?
We were all
Um,
trained to do that. For a
yeah.
while.
But we had a protocol, I think, on behind bar. Like I would face away from people to try the espresso, you know. It was very strange. But yeah, the pandemic actually helped us instead of like crippling us, you know.
Yeah.
And I think people that just sat and waited until the pandemic was over, they, you know, like, I don't know if it helped them, right? But I knew that that wasn't for me. Um,
And you're doing well. I mean, moving on from that point, like you're opening up you have a third location and very soon to have a fourth location, right?
right.
So, I mean, how has that been of like the expanding? Like, does it feel like it's just like a natural organic thing to just open up another one? Or is this something too, like that learning curve?
I think it's for me the point of building good coffee shop. I think I've achieved it. I think the I don't want to say an end game, but what is the point of building a business if you're still struggling to put food comfortably on the table, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you might have a coffee shop that's busy, but you still got to pay for payroll and payroll taxes and all the other fees that you don't want to pay, right?
Yeah.
But you got to do it because it's a business, and at the end of the day, you still don't generate enough income to say like I'm going to go on vacation for a while, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we also built the second cafe, and I was still bootstrapping like I was building the trailer, and I don't want to say I was like super comfortable, but I'm like more comfortable than before, and I still am very cost conscious when I go out to dinner. The only thing I make exceptions for is taking the team out, spending money on them. For me, that's an investment in the people.
Yeah.
And I did that very, very regularly because, food is one of the biggest expenses in life, right? I can't pay for their lodging, but I can help them, eat. They eat free at the cafes every day. And, I thought, how do I move on and grow from there, right? How do I make a little bit more money for myself and justify going out to a nice dinner, And that's why I found, when I found space for the third location, I was so happy to be able to keep growing, to be able to have another stream of revenue to give people a better life. I'm very proud of myself to be able to give our employees, medical, dental, vision. 401k became part of the benefits. We offer sick pay and vacation pay.
And see all that invested. I mean, that's investing back into your team. And we were talking about this earlier that you do have a lot of tenured baristas and people who have been around for a few years because of that investment.
Yeah, I think so. I think people, the crew, and I hope they're really happy with me. Right? I wanted to be, I do want to be the boss that I don't want to say I never have or I never had, because I did have a few pretty amazing bosses. But I want to build that perfect coffee shop, not because it's the perfect espresso. I want to build that perfect coffee shop the way I would want to work for, right? Though I wanted to work for a coffee shop, the one I'm building.
Yeah.
And so it's important that I give good benefits. It's important that I take care of people like they need to feel taken care of. I would like to work for me, right?
Yeah.
The whole point of all of this is not possible if I don't keep building more streams of revenue.
True.
And so my goal, Liza and I, we're definitely on board, but after honestly, after a few years, you get a little tired of being broke.
Yeah.
Um,
Of course.
and so I still I'm very transparent with the crew. I show them my paychecks. I mean, minimum wage is now 18, and I still pay myself 17 an hour. Like I can do that because technically I'm salary, but I only pay myself 80, even though I work like every 80 hours every like 2 weeks, right? Even though I work over 100.
Yeah.
But I calculate, okay, $17 an hour, times 80. I felt like I needed to just keep paying myself little so that I can afford things for the cafe. Things that you can't just go and buy a $30,000 machine.
Yeah.
And so the idea came of like maybe further pushing and bootstrapping. Maybe if Liza can get paid, maybe she can help pay for my food, and I can not pay myself. And if a barista makes about, say, $30,000 a year, each year I don't pay myself, I can buy an extra machine. That's another cafe.
It's interesting because a lot of small businesses, you kind of have to think strategically like that. And some aren't willing to make that sacrifice, but
I think you need to be creative for sure. Like, I mean, I don't know about other business owners, but I have to see like what's in it for me, right? Like, if I'm trying to just build a single coffee shop and I'm comfortable, I don't want to get by. Right?
Yeah.
I want to, what you see on TV, like, how did they become so successful? Why did they get to drive really nice cars? Like, oh, they look like they're not worried at all. Well, how do I get there? Work my way up to that level. That takes sacrifice, right? That takes sacrifice in pay and leisurely activities.
sleepless nights.
Yeah, lots of sleepless nights. I have people that would say, let's go out to do whatever, right? And I would, I don't want to say I'm making an excuse, but I'm like, I certainly don't want to spend money at a bar to go drink because that costs money, right?
Exactly.
I'm known to be an extremist in cost savings. That's unfortunately that's also business, right? Like you need to learn how to cut your costs. You got to learn where to spend money wisely. And Liza and I were able to achieve that by cutting all of our costs and pooling together our money to build the shop. And I think we're wired that way, to be able to like take very little of what we had and see it grow, right? Throw it at something and see it grow. And so far, I mean, we keep growing because we are still broke, right? And I think that's a very weird strategy, but it totally works. Like it requires you to sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
If there are no sacrifices, then there are basically no volunteers. And the world would be in a worse shape, right? Like we need volunteers, we need people to donate, and for me, I'm that volunteer. I'm that person donating to this business, to build it. And I'm excited to see where it goes. I hope to offer more benefits, than what we currently do.
All accounts and purposes, it's working. I mean, it might not feel like it on the inside, but like on the outside, it definitely looks like a very successful in a day and age where small businesses are really struggling to even just get by, let alone grow. Your strategy seems to be working. And I'm not saying that everybody who wants a small coffee shop has to, do exactly like you.
What I would be interested in is what really drives your personal ambition to succeed here. Is it just purely for to grow the business? Is it for the staffing and the baristas? It seems like you have a deep passion for your staff and your team. Is that, would you say, one of your biggest driving factors on there? Or?
I mean, that's a good question. I certainly don't want to grow without seeing the team grow. I think if I achieve financial success and the team isn't there, that's kind of a fail to me, right? I want to see people that have been working with me for so far half a decade to be successful, right? To not go, I've put in all this hard work and energy just to move on to something else, right? That's I don't want to be that type of boss. And so I'm growing on purpose to sure, put food comfortably on my table, but there's something to be said about being a small business. Small business, it's tough. It can suck because there are many, like you said, sleepless nights where I'm like scratching my head, like when a bill comes in, I don't even know how I can pay this. I have no idea how I can pay this. When do I get money in? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can stop eating, you know. And so being able to identify like the struggles of a small business and then purposely choosing to grow so that I'm no longer small, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
That's what I'm trying to do, right? How do I give better benefits to employees, to people I want to take care of, by remaining a small business? Absolutely not. There's no way. So I think, people are constantly wondering, why are you trying to grow more? Why are you trying to expand? Like, it's not greed. I'm not putting more money in my pocket, but my goal is to, take care of the company, take care of the people, take care of myself. And by identifying those struggles as a small business, right? How do we get to where we want to be? How do we stop struggling?
Mm-hmm.
We got to take out loans. We got to go and invest in and take risk in building more cafes, right? People also love when people succeed. Who doesn't get excited when there's a new coffee shop in town?
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I see no real dangers in growing. I can't wait to see where we are in 10 years. And we've only been in business for not even 7 years. Having 4 cafes is it sounds wild.
Yeah, that's pretty big growth.
Yeah. I think it's just about taking risks. Tell you how many people that I've formed really close relationships with that I don't see as employees at all. Like, I see them as just real friends.
Mm.
And being there together with them, if they could see it as a job, great. But if they also see it as like a relationship, and whatever the efforts that they put forth,
Mm-hmm.
they actually sense an outcome that impacts their lives. That's the coolest feeling in the world. Like, that's totally what I want to do. Right? It's not about pulling the perfect shot of espresso. Of course, their mission is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But for me, yes, I expect them to pull a great shot of espresso any part of the day, any time of the day. But it's more than just good coffee. They've got to be happy. They got to serve their guests happy. They got to understand the mission of quality, and why we do the things that we do. So I'm thankful that everybody's so amazing.
Really shows, honestly, with the kindness of the staff that we were able to meet, and just the quality of the product and the variety is fantastic. What I'd really love to hear is kind of what's next for you. What were your plans at the moment, and what do you see on the horizon?
I have a 5th location planned, and I'm just really hopeful and thankful that I'm in the position to be able to invest in something. And I think of nothing better than to invest it into the people that work at Spro. I think I did a lot of thinking when I heard that the granddaughter of Walt Disney was complaining that the CEO gets paid too much, and she's like sickened because like how can someone pay themselves that much, and that the people don't get paid enough, the workers don't get paid enough. And I think about that all the time, about how when you climb the ladder and you're expanding and growing, you have obviously more responsibilities, but you can't grow without, I think, as a good leader, without bringing people together with you, like, on the same page. And that's why I still work at the cafe every single day. I'm not going out relaxing, having a day off or anything like that. Sure, everybody deserves to have time off, but they won't see me doing that. They'll see me hardworking, and hopefully they see me as a leader that they respect. I want to take the employees together on this journey with me of building. And I think, right now as a company, I can't just give shares to the employees, but I think I can invest in them by building a coffee shop for them. For those who, we're going to have some qualifications, but for those who end up qualifying, I'm gonna give this cafe to them to operate, so they can, own it. They can have shared revenue, or shared profits, and basically a miniature version of like what I tried to do. Right? I think these people that work so hard for Spro, that care so much about their guest experience and the attention to detail, that passion to like deliver their very best, that shouldn't be discouraged in any way. I think we need to like harvest that and harness that. And so building their own cafe allows them to grow and stay in the industry. I think we all know, as an identifying problems in the hospitality world, is that there are a lot of people that are really good at what they do, and then in a matter of years they're gone, right? How do we get these people that are really good at what they do to stay?
Thank you for listening to our discussion with Rich Lee of Spro Coffee Lab. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Beyond Hospitality. And next week, we're talking with Rich about a new innovative concept he has with a barista-owned cafe. If you have a minute, leave a comment below if you have any recommendations for cafes or coffees we should try. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you'd like to follow us as we talk more about hospitality and specialty coffee. We hope you'll join us next time on Beyond Hospitality.